Well, welcome to part 3 of our sermon series, looking particularly at the moment at loosening the chains of injustice to the materially poor. Yes, I said part 3 because part 1 was last Sunday and part 2 was really on Wednesday night. Who was there Wednesday night? Quick review. Was it okay? See the nods? I personally thought it was excellent, but then again I did most of the prep work, so I'm probably biased. But if you missed out on it, you can still go back. It's on our Facebook page. You can see the main block of the input on our Facebook page. Just be aware that the first, 3 or 4 minutes, the sound wasn't working. Just skip over that part and then you'll hear the sound kick in. That's before we really get to the teaching stuff. So you'll be fine. But if you missed last Sunday or you missed Wednesday, I can't summarise it properly because there's too much in all of that, but I'll catch you up so that you can follow on today. So during Lent, Kevin and I have been sort of giving us a challenge to partake in the traditional spiritual disciplines of prayer, fasting and almsgiving. That's alms with an L, not with an R. Almsgiving. And to really focus on that this Lent. We're using as a key verse to help shape our experience during Lent, Isaiah 58 verses 6 to 7. And because they're so important in this journey, I thought I'd just read them to you again. This is God speaking. He's not very happy with the fasting that the Israelites were doing at the time. And God says, the kind of fasting I want is this, to remove the chains of oppression and the yoke of injustice, and let the oppressed go free, to share your food with the hungry, open your homes to the homeless poor, give clothes to those who have nothing to wear, and do not refuse to help your own relatives. Or another way of understanding that in the Hebrews, do not refuse to help those who are near you. And so that's our challenge. And on Wednesday, we went a bit deeper into this idea of helping particularly those who are materially poor, those people who do not have enough to live or to sustain themselves. And how do we look for ways to make a difference and share our blessings with the people who have not enough so that they're able to thrive. So last week I gave you the challenge. I said, who's willing to walk this journey, this Lenten journey with me? And there was a whole lot of nods last week by the end of the sermon. My question is, how have we gone? Have we been praying more this week? Have we been looking for opportunities to fast in the spirit of Isaiah 58? Have we been looking for opportunities to give of our blessings to others? Have we gone? Because there's not a whole lot of excitement here. I'm imagining we haven't got as well as we hoped we would. Don't feel too guilty. Don't feel too guilty. I've also struggled this week to find those opportunities. And I'm supposed to be doing it so I can say, let's keep doing this together. But it's been hard. There's still so much happening in the world, so much happening in our own lives, that it's hard to find that space. But I really want to encourage us to make sure that Lent is more than just good intentions. At the study on Wednesday night, I quoted Oscar Romero, who gave an illustration of an analogy of a house on fire. He said that a lot of people who may see a house on fire may be concerned for the homeowners. Are they okay? Have they got out okay? But Romero went on to sort of say, how would it change if it was your family's home? You would feel totally different about it then. You would want to rush in and find out that everybody is okay. He went on to say that helping the material poor, how do we as followers of Jesus move from being concerned about these issues to having that sense of, I need to do something about this? He made the observation that maybe seeing Jesus in the faces of the materially poor might help us find that motivation. But I think the larger issue is saying we need to move past just good intentions to how do we actually do this. One of our readings today was the woman who reached out to Jesus and was healed. Luke tells us that she had been suffering for 12 years with a bleeding problem, but that nobody could heal her. In the Mark version, we read that she had spent all the money that she had, but things had only got worse. There is actually some debate among scholars of why couldn't the doctors heal her? Why couldn't the doctors heal her? Is it simply because they didn't have the medical knowledge at that time to solve her particular medical issue? Or is there other reasons at play here? Is it because that she was materially poor and therefore didn't have the resources to pay for the treatment needed to heal her, and so therefore had to keep suffering for 12 years? Or maybe even worse, did the doctors take advantage of her situation and of her desperation and kept on taking her money without solving her problem? Because if they solved her problem, they would not be able to take any more of her money. Was it an issue of exploitation? That sort of stuff about being exploited or being excluded because you don't have enough money, that still wouldn't happen today, would it? Statistics tell us that half the world does not have access to essential healthcare that people need. We're not talking about the extra healthcare that makes us, even more comfortable. We're talking about essential healthcare, and only half the world has access to it at the moment. On Wednesday night, I did a bit of a review of the 8 millennial goals that were set in 1990 and ran for 25 years, and we looked at each one and how we've gone in those millennial goals, because we can now look back and do some reflecting on that. And I noticed, I don't have time to go through them now. If you want to hear me go through them, go and watch the video of Wednesday night. But I noticed that when I was going through these 8 millennial goals, the feeling of the room was getting really heavy. Every time I would give another statistic, such as there are still 830 million people living in extreme poverty, that 99% of the women who die in childbirth belong to developed countries. When I was throwing out these statistics, you could just feel people just sinking a little bit lower in their seat as the weight of all these numbers and problems was landing on people, and you could just feel them go, oh my goodness. And there was this sense in the whole room of what can we possibly do to help here? These issues are so big, so extensive. The numbers are so large. What can we possibly do to help? Unfortunately, this is the question that I was penciled in for me to try and answer in today's sermon. And I'm feeling a bit the same way as we were feeling a bit on Wednesday night. What can we possibly do? How do we even begin to wrestle with these difficult issues? How can we, as committed, considered people of faith, help those who are materially poor? I want to say there are some ways forward, but the problem is still very complex and overwhelming. But let's start with saying, yes, we can do things like we can simply donate food or support the charities or NGOs or organisations who are already working in this area. There are already people doing this, and we can be supporting them by sharing the blessings that we have with those, and so they can be passing it on to the people who don't have enough. At our worship planning meeting that we have to plan these services, we talked about the importance of realising this isn't just overseas, this is happening right here as well. That there are people in need maybe not as much right in this Turramurra area, but you don't have to go too far down the road, still within our understanding of our larger neighbourhoods, to find people who are desperately in need. And so we talked about things like Fusion at Hornsby, or the Women's Shelter at Hornsby, or Exodus Foundation, and of course the Dish at St John's that our church has been supporting for many years, that feeds the homeless every week down in Hornsby, or the people who are in need down in Hornsby. And we have a number of people from our church who volunteer down there, not only by cooking the food, not only by serving the food, but also in the administration, in the management of that. And so I asked the team who was serving down at the Dish a week ago, could they make a little video about what they're doing down there, and they did. It's not very long, but we're going to hear Isaac and Rach and Trevor and the rest of the team in this short video now.
Hi church, this is Isaac and some of the people from the Dish team here on a Friday night, and Phil just asked us to say why we're here. Well, we're here at the Dish, and some people from the church have made some yummy food and some desserts, and this is just a great opportunity to give back to some people in the community who are in need. And at the moment, we just give it to them outside the drive-in little window there because of the COVID restrictions. But it's still lots of fun. Hi, everybody. Hi.
So that's Isaac and the team there. So you sort of got a snapshot of what's happening there. Normally, they would be able to sit down and to actually engage in conversation with people as well, because that's part of the ministry that they're not able to do as well at the moment. But you saw some photos on the side that Trevor took. They still can interact, it's just not quite the same. But like that's nothing big to be part of that, either helping cook or helping serve or being on the administrative side of making that happen. That's something that's easy to step into, which we can be helping the materially poor. And if you are keen to learn more, you can either talk with Kevin or me, but the best person to speak to is Lara over there. She knows all the answers. Talk to Lara and she would love to link you up. We do it, about once a month? Once every 2 months. So it's not even that time intensive either. But it's a great opportunity to either cook or serve or be part of the administrative side of that. So all I'm trying to show you here is that helping those who are materially poor does not have to be onerous. I heard of a story this week of a bloke who was in a hospital cafe and he was lined up to buy some food, and he was watching this lady in front of him looking through the coins in her purse. And reading between the lines a bit, he sort of made the assumption that she had been sitting by the bedside of a loved one, has come down to try and find some dinner, and was trying to work out, well, basically, what she could afford. And in those moments of being spontaneous and maybe a little creative, he just felt that prompting to do something, so he just quietly whispered to her, he said, "If you'd like me to, I've got this. I'll cover it. Order what you want, I'll pay." And he just said you could see this relief wash over her. Helping those who are in need requires us to, it may be as simple as listening for those prompts and responding when we feel them. It's the same with the floods or the war in Ukraine. Yes, those issues are huge, and we go, what can we do? But we can do some things. We can give to the Red Cross or other known agencies, but we may also know people who are personally involved. So, for example, who knows somebody who has been personally affected by the floods in New South Wales or Queensland? Are the Baileys here too? Because they could be putting up their hand as well. There are people who know direct family members who have been involved. If you want to know how to help, you should have looked around then when they put up their hand. And you could go to these people and go to the Baileys and go, I know that is it Peter's sister? Has lost everything. What can I do to help? We can be helping simply like that as well. Trying to break the chains and the injustice of those who do not have enough is huge and overwhelming. And you may notice that I am not calling this series Breaking the Chains, even though some of the translations in the Bible use that phrase, let's break the chains of injustice in Isaiah 58. I've changed that to loosening the chains, which some other translations of the Bible use, because I think sometimes breaking the chains is too hard. But we can do some things that might loosen those chains of injustice and oppression through our generosity and our almsgiving. I just need to throw in a potential trap that we can sometimes fall into when it comes to helping those who are materially poor or in need. In our good intentions, in our desire to make a difference, sometimes I think we can rush in and think that we know exactly what they need and we can rush in there and solve their problem for them and try and be the most helpful. We're going to talk about this more over the next 2 weeks. But how do we help those who are materially poor actually find a voice to be able to say, actually, this is what I need. This is what would be most helpful. And that requires us to be willing to listen before we immediately react. I know I've been caught by this when I've looked back on the mission trips that I've done when I was younger and suddenly go, in hindsight, was that more about me going, I think this is a good idea, rather than listening to the people I was working with and going, what do you actually need? Look, I don't think it was unhelpful, but I'm not sure, that tension between is this coming from me or from them. Uniting World actually has a rule now for any mission trip that if you do a mission trip through Uniting World, they actually require you to spend at least the first portion of your mission trip not doing anything but listening and spending time with the people that you're going to. Because of that sense of, stop thinking that we have all the answers. Let's go and spend some time with the people who are in need and listen before we do anything. One more point to explore. In our other Bible reading, it's the story of Jesus in the temple. And this is a key Lent Bible reading, partly because, as you heard in the Bible reading in the version that we heard, it's in all 4 of the Gospels, but in the one that we heard from Luke, the disruption of the temple is often seen as the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to the Pharisees wanting to kill Jesus. It was a bit like, we've put up with a lot with you, Jesus, but no more. We're going to look for ways that we can get rid of you now. So it's a key Lent reading. But my question is, why was Jesus so angry? Any of the Gospels that you're reading, Jesus is not happy in the temple. But the question becomes, why? What was the thing that was setting Jesus off so much? It's not as if he's walked into the temple for the first time and has seen this and got angry. Jesus had been in the temple a lot, going right back to when he was a kid, and got lost, and they found him in the temple, right through to he would have gone to the temple every year of his life, and in his ministry he's regularly in and out of the temple, teaching or for other reasons. And so he'd seen these sellers in the temple before. And yet on this particular day, something has clicked within him and he's, in his anger, reacted. What was that? If you read John's Gospel, John talks about how Jesus said, "You've made this temple a marketplace." Sort of implying that it was the the very fact that you had stalls inside the church, that was the problem. Hopefully it's not that, because we're doing our flea market here soon where we will literally have stalls inside the church. But there's some other writers and other scholars who want to suggest that maybe another reason is that Jesus was actually reacting to the systematic injustice that was in the temple. You see, when you went to the temple, you were not allowed to bring your own sacrifice to the temple. You had to buy a sacrifice at the temple because they had to say that it was perfect and pure, according to the Levitic laws. So therefore, you had to buy their one that they could say was perfect and pure. And so, of course, they would mark up their sacrifices to get more money off you. And even worse, they had a rule that you weren't allowed to buy the sacrifices with normal money that they used, the Roman money. You had to use the temple money. So therefore you had to exchange with the money exchangers normal money for temple money so that you could buy that. And of course there was a markup there too. So basically there's this system that if you came in to do a sacrifice for your spirituality, you had two lots of people ripping you off before you even got to that point. And there's a part that some people want to suggest that Jesus was responding going, what are you doing this for? These people have very little already. And you're taking, you who have, are taking from the people who have less, just so that you can have more. There's a systematic injustice here. And maybe that's what Jesus was saying, I can't stand this anymore. I have to stand against what is happening here. Stand against that type of exploitation and discrimination. Now, we would like to think that that doesn't exist anymore, that type of exploitation and discrimination against those who are materially poor, but unfortunately it does. You don't have to look very far to see that there are still people who don't mind rigging the system so that those who have plenty can take more from those who have not much. One of the videos on Wednesday night, I was very unkind to a bloke called Trevor and said that he was a bit dry. He was not dry. He did a great video. So all the people who said to me afterwards, I think you're a bit rough on Trevor. Yes, I'll take that. I was rough on Trevor. Trevor did this great video. That's why I chose it, because it was a good video, where he made a statement that he said we need to admit that our modern economic system exploits people and exploits the environment. And as Christians, we need to make a stand against this. It's pretty confronting, isn't it? That's a statement that sort of goes, oh, I know he's right, but that's a hard statement to hear. I think that we can stand against systematic injustice against the material poor in two ways. One of the ways we can do it is awareness. I think we need to be more aware of what's going on. And this involves finding clear, correct, up-to-date information on issues. And that's really hard at the moment because there's a lot of not clear, not correct information out there. And so trying to find good, clear information is hard, but I think we need to do it. And I think that we also need to make sure that we are hearing diverse voices, because we can be fooled into thinking, oh, this must be the answer because we're only hearing from one type of voice. And particularly, how do we listen to those who are the quietest voices? And in this particular case, the voices of those who are materially poor are often the quietest voices. And when we do find good, clear information, how do we communicate that with others so that others will be aware as well? That's a real challenge in itself. Raising awareness is tough work, but it's something that I think that we as Christians, as followers of Jesus, are called to do. The other thing that we can do is advocacy. We can actually use our voice and our position of power and our position of privilege to help level the field a bit. We saw a great video on Wednesday night of the boxers and trying to, level the field a bit. People who work in this field say that advocacy, once again, is hard to do, but there are two things that work at the moment. Who knows how we keep changing everything, but at the moment seem to work better than other things at the moment. If you want to be an advocate against an injustice, two things that work is one, writing to politicians. I know it sounds funny, but it does actually make an impact. Politicians take anything on social media with a grain of salt. It's almost like, oh, I don't have to listen to that because there's weirdos on social media who make any sort of statement. But if you write to them, they are legally required to write back. Well, maybe not the politicians themselves. They will get somebody who is lower than them to write back, but they're supposed to write back every time you write to a politician. And so if you write a letter to a politician, it is noticed. It is noticed. And so people who are in advocacy work say, when's the last time you wrote to a politician? I don't know, when is the last time you wrote to a politician? I haven't done it for a while. And really there's lots of things that I want to write to the politicians about. And they said, do it. Send an email, write a letter. You know, all the email addresses are on the government websites. Find them, send them off. Say, I want to say that I don't agree with this, or I think that we should be doing more in this area, or whatever. You know, one of the things that weighs heavily on me at the moment is that Australia has promised, 41 million doses of vaccines to other countries, of which we delivered very little so far. It's sort of going, why? It's not that we don't have an excess at the moment. Maybe I should write to a politician and say, can you get a hurry on and distribute those to the people who need? The other thing is economic pressure, and I know that this has been unfairly labelled as cancel culture at the moment. Or have I gone past where I needed to be? But it actually does work. Companies don't like it if you say, I don't like this injustice that you seem to be involved in, and I'm wanting to make a stand against that. They don't like it when people say that about their companies, and often they will try and respond so that you don't feel that way. So I don't know if this has been helpful or not, but here are some things that we can be doing to try and make a difference. I said up front that I struggle with this. This is hard work. Trying to find ways that I can be helpful for the people who are materially poor, not only locally, but regionally, nationally and internationally, is hard work. And yet I want to try. I want to be more helpful. I don't want to just be all words. I want to try and find ways that I can put this into action. I want this to be part of my Lent offering to God. Last week I showed you this quote by Leela Ramadan, and this quote continues to resonate with me. This sense of, I want Easter to mean something. I want to be part of my Easter journey is to make a difference. And so I've reworded that for the end of my talk here, making it more personalised for me, so to speak. So this is what I felt by the time I was finishing my sermon when I was writing it, that this Lenten Easter, I want my baptism to mean something. I want to be transformed. I want God to stir within me a hunger and a thirst for justice and peace. And I want to live by every value for which Jesus stood, or at least try. And I want this Lenten Easter to overcome the indifference and recognise that I am God's instrument to build a better world for all people, but especially at the moment for the materially poor. I don't know, is that something that resonates with you too? Am I still getting nods saying this journey is hard, but I still want to be on it? Still getting a few nods. Then let's keep going. Let's keep moving towards Easter on this Lenten journey. Amen.